You're listening to Geeks Unleashed.
A podcast that covers what's current in the world of pop culture.
I'm Mark Brassington, and I'm in London.
And I'm Jasmine in Texas.
Hello. Welcome to Geeks Unleashed. This is episode 66.
If you are not already subscribed, you can find us at Geeks Unleashed everywhere, including your favorite podcast platform. Remember, 5-star reviews help us get found by more listeners, so please rate and review Geeks Unleashed on Apple or Podchaser.
I'm Mark, and as usual, I am joined by my co-host from Texas.
I'm Jasmine.
This week's review, we are reviewing The Count of Dracula Volume 1 from SourcePoint Press, which is the only 6 issues as a miniseries. It's a miniseries.
So far. So spoiler warning, this is a review show. So if you have not had a chance to read any of the first 6 issues of Cult of Dracula, I'm going to pause this and come back later because we are spoiling all of it.
Jump in. I think we're just going to jump straight into the news. There's a fair bit of news.
Oh man, so much stuff.
There's loads of things that happened this week. I mean, we didn't even write this down. There's going to be a new Rocketeer film on Disney Plus. There's so much stuff going on. But I thought we'd jump into some big announcements from Marvel and DC. So
yeah, we're keeping it with the big 2 this week.
Yeah, we're just going to stick with the big 2. There's a load of other things that we saw, but when Marvel and DC dropped their big news this week, I would say DC's news was wider. Like Marvel's DC was just comics, but equally exciting. So they've announced 8 new comic book titles to go along with the fact that they're 82 years old. So
happy birthday.
So originally, Marvel Comics was called Timeless, and the first publication of their first ever comic, Marvel Comics issue 1 from Timely. Sorry, it was called Timely Publications, not Timeless. Sorry, Timely Publications were 82 years ago. So straight out the bat, they've released like this timeline picture where it shows a bunch of books coming out between sort of December 2021 all the way to February 2022.
How very MCU of them to release it in that format.
I know that was very movie. It was like very movie tentpole. I think it did confuse a few people. Like, is this movies? Like, no. This is just comics. So, however, 2 of those comics are very well timed. Well,
would you say that they're timely publications?
Well, no, but I just thought of something just before I jumped into the first one. So we know that we're going to talk about She-Hulk and what's it called? Moon
Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Yeah, we're going to talk about those in a minute, but we know that those are timed of potential TV shows. Now, the first one I was about to talk about, Devil's Reign, is a Daredevil event, which is out in December. And initially I was about to say that's not timed with any TV. Well, I was about to say...
But it's timed with Spider-Man!
But it is timed with Spider-Man No Way Home coming out in December. So now it's got me thinking...
It's Matt Murdock. It's got to be Matt Murdock in the movie.
It's got I hadn't considered it before we started recording, but now I'm thinking, did they deliberately cancel Daredevil? One story-wise, but could this story have just been in the main Daredevil book? Probably. But they probably were like, well, how do we get a new Daredevil #1 on the shelves in time with, with the Spider-Man movie? This is just pure speculation here, on my part. So anyway, spinning out a current Daredevil title with Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto. Sorry if I butchered your name. Anyway, so long-time villain Kingpin. He's been kind of in Daredevil and Spider-Man, and he's been the mayor of New York City, and he's kind of been doing whatever he wants in both books. I haven't been reading Daredevil. It's something I want to read. I do have it to read, just haven't got around to reading it. However, I've been reading Amazing Spider-Man. I know as the mayor, he's been a bit more cartoony in Nick Spencer's run, but he has equally been up to no good in that book. However, there's going to be a lot of crap going down. And I've seen some of the preview pages for Devil's Reign, and Jessica Jones is going to be in it, and Luke Cage is going to be in it, and it's kind of some private eyes getting offed, and potentially Kingpin is clearing house. So they have said it's going to be there's going to be sort of a new version of Thunderbolts in this book as well, and it's going to be the characters that are going to be in Devil's Reign are going to be Daredevil, Elektra, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four. I think it's brilliant that they're bringing Spider-Man in because obviously like I said, Nick Spencer's run, Iron Fist, Kingpin has had quite a prominent role. It's now really making me double down on that Spider-Man speculation, though. The fact Spider-Man's in that book. So I think we will have to see, like, what was that Matt Murdock shirt hanging over Tom Holland at the PlayStation?
Oh, man. Oh, man. But also, if they're bringing in the Fantastic Four characters, I mean, could that potentially be another like entry point for bringing those characters into the MCU fold as well?
I mean, it's only a matter of time before Fantastic Four come in. Also, I mean, the rumors around everywhere about whether we're getting getting Thunderbolts or some sort of Dark Avengers in the Marvel universe as well. Sorry, the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. So, again, Marvel could just be teasing us.
They're very good at that.
I mean, it could just be that it's just a story. Chip Zdarsky was like, look, I've got a big event story that's coming up. Like, I could easily tell it within the main book. And Marvel were like, no. Number ones do sell more. So we'll give it another little relaunch. So, and also we know that we'll probably get a few more people in comic shops around that time. So
yep.
It could just literally just be that. Anyway, Avengers Forever is the next one. I'm not reading Avengers, but this is I'm not reading the current Avengers book. I have read Avengers in the past, just haven't read any of Jason Aaron's. I've heard mixed things about it. So what this book will be about is a sort of a multiversal Avengers lineup. Basically, it says here, bring order to timelines where hope is a 4-letter word. I mean, it's always a 4-letter word. I don't really understand that, but anyway, so they're going to have an alternate version of Tony Stark, and he's going to be an archaeologist, and it's also going to have and this is in speech marks, Invincible Ant-Man. I'm curious to see what that's about. I'm not that excited, but apparently it spins out of the events of November's Avengers issue 50/750 if you're using legacy numbering. But yeah, like I say, I'm not particularly excited, but it comes out in December. I might have a flick through it on the shelves. Like, that's probably about it for me.
So the next book is Timeless, which is the sort of King the Conqueror limited series that they're doing, where it will follow the Time Tyrant as he defends Marvel's main universe, the 616, against a threatening new timeline that has emerged. So that one's going to be helmed by Jed McKay, and Kev Walker, Joe Bennett, and Mark Bagley are going to be the artists on that one. That's coming out in December, which honestly, that sounds a heck of a lot like the ending of season 1 of Loki.
I mean, again, it's just times with TV, isn't it? Loki came out earlier this year. So, I mean, obviously, when the Loki TVs, I haven't read the Kang the Conqueror miniseries that's going on at the moment, so Timeless is going to spin out of that. I haven't read it, but when they sort of did the Kang the Conqueror miniseries around the ending of Loki, I was like, well, that was timed with Loki. Yeah. And now we're getting this Timeless thing, which feels very much like a Loki TV series. So they kind of feed into each other, don't they? Because it
makes sense, though. I mean, if people are already talking about something and they want to get more information, there's no better time than to be and especially like one of the movie theaters by my parents' house, there's a comic shop in the same parking lot as the movie theater. So anytime my mom and I go and see a superhero movie, she immediately walks out of the theater and she's like, okay, let's go to the comic store. I'm like, okay, Mom, sure, let's go.
I think that's good though, because if you think about the movies and the TV series, Marvel and DC, most of the stories are inspired by the comics. So it's kind of clever thinking by marketing and people like that to create stories that are based or not based from the movies, but have very similar tones to the movies and the TV series. Because if you were a massive fan of Loki, and you, like you just said, you're walking past a comic shop, you walk in and you say to the comic dude, like I enjoyed the Loki TV series. Is there anything I can buy? Yeah, there's a Kang the Conqueror miniseries there, or Timeless in December that's coming out. You know, that those will be things that you'll be familiar with. So, you know, I think that's quite clever on their part. Again,
I mean, cross marketing, it makes sense, right? Like your movie audience can bleed over into your comic audience can bleed over into your television audience. Like it all blends together. Now you're not going to hit all of the same people with every medium, but you're going to get carryover. Like exactly like you said, like somebody walks out or somebody watches something on Disney Plus and they're like, you know, I really want to know more about that character. Let me go see what the comics are saying.
I think like we had Robbie on last week and said, you know, you'll get people walking in saying, look, I enjoyed Swamp Thing by Ram V. And he's like, well, Ram V also writes, you know, this book by Boom Studios, name's completely forgotten me, but anyway, you know, so you can look at synergies between them. You know, if you're a fan of that creator, you should be a fan. If you're a fan of his style or her style of writing or illustration, you should also like this other thing that they've done. So I think it's definitely a good idea by Marvel and DC to have that sort of cross you know, product. So anyway, let's jump into Wolverine. So what's better than one Wolverine book? Well, obviously two Wolverine books. So like, you know, like people aren't paying enough money. Those X titles are going crazy as they are, and there's many X books, and so they thought, well, let's have two Wolverine books, you know. So in the style of House of X and Powers of X, they have decided that they're going to have two Wolverine books called X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine by the current Wolverine writer Ben Percy. So he's going to be running these two miniseries. It's again sort of very multiversal, reality altering. So it's going to be a bit like sort of Days of Future Past, Logan. You know, it's going to be sort of alternate versions of Wolverine, basically. So he'll be joined by Joshua Cassara and Federico Viciniti. I don't know. Anyway, both are due to come out in January 2022. I don't know much more than that. I did read the first few issues of the current Wolverine book. It is something I'd like to go back and read. I probably will at some point. Probably do it over my Christmas break when I'm catching up, when there's, I say, not a lot on Christmas. Busy.
Chris, I was going to say Christmas is always busy.
I mean, I might get a spare half an hour somewhere. Anyway, but I look, I'm curious, but I mean, Wolverine only got killed off like 2 or 3 years ago, and then when they brought him back, they brought him back with like 18 different miniseries. Like, I don't know. But here we go, seeing links here to the multiverse. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what that's about, but.
I mean, the multiverse is the hot new thing right now, Mark. Don't you know?
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? I heard a rumor the other day that apparently Boom Studios are considering having their own Buffyverse. So their current Buffy titles, which are brand new, potentially crossing over with the original sort of Buffy Angel characters that were from the TV series, and sort of a cross, like a bit like Spider-Verse. So I heard that the other day. No idea how true that is, but everybody's loving these like multiverse, multiple Earth things. You know, people seem to like them. So I guess why not?
Hey, I mean, if it ain't broke. So one of the next books coming out is going to be She-Hulk, which of course coincides with the Disney Plus series. She-Hulk is going to be returning to shelves in a brand new ongoing series with writer Rainbow Rowell and artist Roger Antonio. It's going to be picking up with from the She-Hulk from the Avengers, that ongoing series is up right now. What was that one called? World War She-Hulk. There we go. And in this new storyline, she is going to be kidnapped and put sort of like through this Black Widow type Red Room reprogramming. So then the series picks up following Jennifer as she sort of tries to put all of that in her past and move forward. But of course, it's comics. You can't let the past go that easily. So some shady character from her past digs up a whole bunch of stuff that is not going to work out too well in her favor, is what I'm guessing. So the new She-Hulk book is going to be dropping pretty soon, in January 2022.
I actually wouldn't mind reading this.
I mean, I might pick this up just so I can have like a primer for the show.
I'm curious about Rainbow Rowell. So she's like written mainly young adult books. I have read actually one of her books, Fangirl. I mainly read that because I was actually intrigued by the title. And Fangirl is a book about a girl who is a fan of in that world, like a kind of a Harry Potter-esque franchise, but it was within, and then every other chapter is fan fiction that the character writes. And so I quite liked Fangirl. I've never read anything else by Rainbow, but I probably would. And I know she's been writing The Runaways, which I think has been, from what I've heard, been received quite well. So that, I mean, she's on like issue 30 something now, so I'm not going to go and get that. But I would be quite intrigued to see how she handles She-Hulk. So what intrigues me more is how, you know, a writer that's mainly written young adult books has obviously jumped on to Runaways, and then now She-Hulk. So I'm intrigued to see how she would handle that.
Yeah, what the transition is like there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's handled really well, but I would quite like to pick it up and see. So, and also like, we'll be excited about She-Hulk TV series. So I think grabbing that first issue might be quite cool. Anyway, Fantastic Four, Reckoning War. So Dan Slott is the main writer on Fantastic Four. I've no idea if this is going to be a replacement for Fantastic Four or whether it's an add-on, like an event, as like a bit like Empire was, you know, Fantastic Four. So I don't know much more than that. They haven't said. All they've said is it's described as a reignition of the original Secret War of the Marvel Universe. And yeah, all we can probably assume is that they're referring to the 80s event. And so there's been a few Secret Wars. And yeah, it's been going to be drawn by Carlos Pacino and Rachel Slott. Other than that, not much more information on that. It's coming out January 2022. I'm not reading Fantastic Four, but I've heard that it's getting much better since because originally Dan Slott was writing Iron Man and Fantastic Four. I've heard since he's just writing Fantastic Four that it's become really good. So I don't know. Let us know if it's worth grabbing.
And the last book that they announced is a revival, so to speak, of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which is such a cute book. If you have never picked up Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, I promise you, Lunella Lafayette, she is so adorable. Like, plus she's like friends with a freaking dinosaur. Like, come on. It is going to be coinciding, of course, with the release of the animated series for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur that will be on Disney Plus. However, Marvel is not saying who the creative team will be on this relaunch. So set for February 2022, but we don't know exactly who is going to be inking the book or writing the book, or I guess we'll find out. So wait and see. But I'm excited because I just love the characters.
I wonder if they're doing that because I wonder if they maybe use some of the TV people, like whoever's. I actually don't know who's behind the TV series, but I wonder if some of the TV people are coming into the comic world and doing something. So, yeah, I'm quite interested to watch the animated series. I've never read a single Moon Girl comic, but I've heard
it's like it's my favorite kind of genre where it's like a smart nerdy girl, and supposedly Lunella is like she's an inhuman, which is the reason that she can, you know, talk to the dinosaur or communicate with the dinosaur. But like, she's supposed to be one of the smartest people in the MCU, if not the smartest person, not MCU, in the Marvel world. But she's only 9 years old. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like kid shenanigans, but smart kid shenanigans. Anyway, it's so cute. Plus, like I said, she's freaking friends with the dinosaur. Like, come on.
I think I'll pick it up. I actually would be interested in reading it because I've never read a single Moon Girl series. So yeah. I think when the TV, I can see why they're doing this. It's quite clever marketing because the TV series will be coming out. I don't know much about it, so I'll be like, yeah, do you know what? I'll pick it up.
Yeah. So that's about it for our Marvel news, and we'll just jump straight into DC, where they have announced their sort of not complete lineup, just categories of what they're going to be talking about in DC fandom, which is going to be happening this year, October 16th. 24-hour live stream event. They've done this before. It's a lot of fun. It was all virtual before. Even when two people are on stage together, everybody was separate through the magic of movie making and green screens. So to me, it was a really fun virtual event. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing again. Kicking off with that, they've got Warner Brothers Pictures is going to be showcasing some of their most anticipated titles, including an exclusive brand new trailer for The Batman. They're also going to have new content from the DC League of Super Pets. There's also going to be a first look at Black Adam, which I'm pumped about. I feel like there has not been. I know The Rock's schedule is super busy, but like I feel like there just hasn't been enough Black Adam content to kind of, whet the appetite for what's to come. So super excited about Black Adam stuff. We're going to get a look at The Flash, which this movie, I'm excited about this movie because I really love Ezra Miller's Flash, but this movie has been through the ringer like you would not believe. So I'm also very nervous because I have no idea what kind of film we're going to get with The Flash. We're also going to get a behind the scenes look at Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and Shazam, The Fury of the Gods. So they're basically putting all their money on their big pictures that are coming out in the next couple of years.
From that, I'm most excited about the Batman. I honestly think it does look good. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm annoyed that DC have effed up the way they have, like, in terms of.
That's a whole other conversation.
Their impatience.
Yeah,
they should have slowly built a world before they did Justice League. It was never going to work anyway. However, Robert Pattinson, I think, actually will be a good Batman. So it's a bit weird that they're trying to now build two Earths and have different.
Yeah.
I'm
not on board with that, but what's done is done.
That Batman film does look really good. So what I'm assuming is that there's probably maybe a lot of this was some sort of. Well, I mean, I know the Ben Affleck Batman was going to be potentially fighting Deathstroke, which would have been flipping amazing. Like, it would have been a really cool film. So I don't really know what this story came from, but I think this film was the fallout of Ben Affleck and DC not being able to make something work. But the trailers I have seen for Robert Pattinson, he does it pretty cool. I do love that I Am Vengeance. I'm like, damn. Cool. So anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, the next sort of part of the DC world that we're getting, Warner Brothers Television, we're going to get a first look at the new seasons of Batwoman, The Flash, Superman and Lois, Sweet Tooth, which I'm excited about. We're going to
So glad that got picked up for a second season.
Going to get a farewell tribute to Supergirl, because obviously the conclusion of season 6 is around the corner. They're going to celebrate 100 episodes of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Obviously a first look at Naomi. So we talked about, actually no, we weren't talking about it earlier. We were talking about it before we started recording. Before we start recording, we were talking about Naomi. Anyway,
but it does the one preview image that they have released for Naomi so far, it looks really good, like spot on with the comics. So I'm super stoked about that too.
They also said a sneak peek of upcoming episodes of Stargirl. So from that, I'll be honest with you, I do not care about Legends of Tomorrow. It's probably the worst show that they have. There is an awful show. I heard the other day was apparently Legends of Tomorrow was not going to be made. It was originally going to be a Suicide Squad TV show.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I heard that the other day. And the reason that didn't happen is because DC were like, well, no, we want to make a Suicide Squad film, so you can't make a Suicide Squad TV series. So then they came up with Legends of Tomorrow instead. So but that would make sense in some ways because half the cast originally were villains, weren't they? Like Captain Cold and Heat Wave, and even Sarah is kind of borderline villain here and there. I think now she's more hero, but she had, when she was in Arrow, killed lots of people. So I can see like where they may have got that idea from, was like, they want to kind of put some sort of villain type people in their own book, in their own TV show.
Yeah, the villains is usually one of the things that they don't really explore too much, especially in the TV shows. So it would have been nice if we had gotten like a villain centric show that was a little bit better.
I think Suicide Squad TV series would have been brilliant. However, it probably would have had a shorter shelf life. So, anyway, I'm not going to bag on Legends tomorrow. People obviously like it. It's been going on a while. So, I haven't watched the last 2 seasons. It is something that I constantly say, oh, one day I'll go back and watch it, because I do have a fondness for these CW shows. But
yeah. But it's almost like they've been running so long that have they run their course? You know, like how much life do these shows still have left in them?
If in terms of the style, so when they first came out, I loved them all. I always preferred, I think, Arrow's seriousness. One of the things I preferred about the Flash was that they were not always willing to kill people off, where Arrow killed too many people off too quickly. And then I think they realized it around season 4, they like killed off all their cast. So then there was a bit of I think there was a thing around season 5 of Arrow. I may be wrong on the seasons here, but there was a thing where they rebuilt their entire cast, brought a whole load of new people in, which actually was a brilliant idea. In fact, they ended up with some really cool new characters. And I think that's what I preferred about the Flash, was that they weren't always willing to kill people off. The only trouble with that is now we're in like season 8 of the Flash, and we've only just lost 2 main characters. So you know, I think they should have. That was the other trouble. The Flash was the opposite. They just didn't want to kill anybody off.
Right.
I don't think you necessarily need to kill people off, though. Like, have people leave and come and go, like real life. So, anyway, I'll finish it there.
All right, next up we got Warner Brothers Games, which actually I am super stoked about one of these games. I mean, the other one looks good too, but I'm super stoked about the first one. And that first game is Gotham Knights. And Gotham Knights is an action RPG. It's open world, Gotham City. There are 4 playable characters. You can be Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin, or Red Hood, which Red Hood, like one of these things is not like the other, right? So each of the characters, they have their own unique play style, very similar to any other RPG you play. It's basically like you pick your class, you pick your character, and then you run with it. So you can play solo, but the game does also feature a multiplayer co-op mode. The other game that they're going to be coming out with is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which, again, another action RPG. This one is based in an open world metropolis. Again, 4 playable characters, so you can either be Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, or King Shark. And same sort of mechanics. You can play solo, but there's also this one includes a 4-player co-op mode. Now, the beauty of these games for antisocial gamers like myself that don't like to play multiplayer modes, if you happen to be playing multiplayer and one of the characters drops out, it does not affect your play. Basically, the AI feature will kick back in, and it's like you're playing solo with no issues. So I think that's pretty cool how you can come and go with the multiplayer mode without really affecting too much of anything. A lot of the way that the game mechanics work is, again, the characters have different classes. When you level up your character, basically enemies are automatically scaled to match your character's level. So you will not feel overpowered as you are going through these open world Metropolis or Gotham City streets. But I'm actually super stoked about Gotham Knights. It looks so much fun. They showed some of the mechanics for that. I want to say sometime last year. Maybe it was at E3. But it just looked so fun. It looks like such a fun game to play. So can't wait to get my hands on that one.
I think that game looks pretty cool. Like, I don't think I've ever bought a DC game ever.
Oh man, I have Arkham Asylum, the Game of the Year version, and I haven't finished it, but like I enjoy it. Like it takes some getting used to because it's I mean, obviously you're playing this Batman, so you can't just shoot people. So it takes some getting used to doing like takedowns and non-lethal combat. But Arkham Asylum it's really good. It's a really good series. Like if you haven't picked it up, I would definitely suggest checking out one of the Arkham Asylum games.
I may just do that. Do you know what? Like it's like September and I have barely played games this year. I don't know what happened to the year. Like I got a bunch of games.
We got busy with podcasting. That's what happened.
Yeah, podcasting, but like life as well.
Yeah.
I think the trouble is like TV, movies, comics,
Yeah.
games just unfortunately took a bit of a shelf.
Well, but also games
backseat.
took a big hit too. Like a lot of them got delayed, and then when they finally did come out, they were really glitchy. Talking to you, Cyberpunk 2077. So I don't think there was too much game content this year.
No, but I mean, even like games that I bought that are a bit old. I got some older games for Christmas, and
you played Spider-Man though.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I can actually. Yeah, to be fair, I ended up concentrating on the Spider-Man game that came out a few years ago.
Yeah, and you got the Miles Morales one.
Yeah, I did get that, but I haven't started it. I haven't finished it. And one of the reasons I haven't finished it is my 11-year-old completed it within a week, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to take my time with it, like, because it is a short game, Miles Morales. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about DC publishing. So,
here we go.
So basically, they've said to honor the legacy of the greatest superheroes and icons, or an icon of truth and equality, Wonder Woman. They're going to release showcase 3 upcoming books. So DC explores her history with the DC Black Label miniseries, Wonder Woman Historia, expands the Amazon mythos with Nubia and the Amazons, and honors her inspiration she provided to women around the world with a graphic novel, Wonderful Women of the World.
They freaking owe us after Wonder Woman 84. Like, you owe us some decent Wonder Woman content.
I don't read Wonder Woman.
I'm excited to pick up the Nubia book for sure.
Yeah, I know there's a few Wonder Woman graphic novels I'd like to pick up and put on our late to the party thing. So,
the last time I was in China, I picked up a Chinese version of Wonder Woman, so I have that up on my shelf too.
Wow. I'll have to read it in English. Anyway, so they've also released some more details about some other miniseries. So there's going to be another installment of the Batman Fortnite crossover. Of course there is.
Of course, Fortnite makes too much money.
That thing's sold like flipping hotcakes. I mean, I don't know how many printings they did of the first issue. I mean, with the Batman Fortnite miniseries they had previously, though, they had people that were just Fortnite fans wanting a Batman comic. So, I mean, it was a great idea whoever came up with that. So, I'll be honest, I read Batman and I saw there was a Batman Fortnite miniseries, and I was like, I don't care. I don't play Fortnite. So, although now I wish I had bought it and flipped it. So, I never buy to flip, but that would have been a good one to have flipped. So, anyway, so there's some more up-and-coming details as well is expected for the Batman Fear State event, which is about to come out. The new 6-issue miniseries, Black Manta. So Black Manta, if you're not aware, was in the Aquaman movie, but obviously he's a historic Aquaman villain. And also the return of the Milestone Universe. We've been getting some of those books have been coming out already. Yeah. So, like things like Static Shock and Hardcore and stuff like that. So, I think we just have to stay tuned to see what else they throw our way. But it sounds like they're going to cover a lot of the events and things that we were already aware of, but they're going to just give us a little bit more information.
Yeah.
So
interesting stuff. All right. So HBO Max is going to be, of course, their big thing that they're announcing lately is all about Peacemaker and his series that they're going to be doing. They also mentioned a limited series event, the DMZ, which I don't know much about. Mark knows a little bit more about that one than me, but the streamer is also going to be doing far more sneak peeks of Titans and Doom Patrol. Titan season 3 comes out. Is it already out? It might already be out.
Season 3 started.
Yeah. So Titans and Doom Patrol surprisingly are doing pretty well. They're getting.
Titans is amazing.
Yeah.
Titans is probably I would say if we were talking about those CW shows earlier, of all of their shows, I mean, I've not. I tried to watch Doom Patrol. I couldn't get into it, but I would like to go back. So from their TV shows at the moment, Superman and Lois, Stargirl, and Titans are their 3 best superhero shows. Like, they're amazing. So.
Well, do those really count though, since they're on CW?
So Titans is
HBO Max.
Yeah, so Stargirl and I'm talking about
Oh, DC in general.
DC, Warner Brothers.
Gotcha.
However, within their multiverse, they are all within the same multiverse. So when Crisis on Infinite Earths happened, they did have a thing at the very end of Crisis on Infinite Earths on CW, and they did show that Stargirl, I believe, was Earth 2, and they did show Titans was on another Earth. So they are essentially all connected. So
dun dun dun. All right. And animation, Warner Brothers Animation is going to be taking a look at the upcoming series Aquaman, King of Atlantis. They're also going to be providing a sneak peek into season 3 of the adult animated comedy series, which if you have not watched it, please do. That was the whole controversy around whether or not Batman goes down on Catwoman. Just hilarity. Okay. So the Harley Quinn series, we're going to see what's in store for Harley. They are going to be giving us an early look at Dark Knight, which is the next animated chapter in the upcoming Batman Cape Crusader series. And we're going to be getting a preview of Young Justice Phantoms, but they said be careful because there's going to be spoilers for that one. So fun stuff. I mean, honestly, I really wish their animation, their film universe would talk to their animation universe a little bit more. I think there's a treasure trove of knowledge there with DC Animation and Warner Brothers Animation that could help out the film universe quite a bit.
I think everybody says it about DC. They just wish some of them, whoever's in charge of their movies, would talk to somebody. Probably the best person to do would be like, look, Feige, how much? Literally, how much would it cost to get you to come work
We'll
here?
give you a totally new pen name. Nobody has to know. You don't even have to tell your wife, man. Come on, just come work for us, please. Help us.
Can you just come over at weekends?
Yes, it's totally fine.
We won't tell Marvel. No. Why don't they just pay him to come leave? I don't reckon he would leave Marvel.
No, he wouldn't leave. But you could consult, someone call Feige and be like, "Yo, man, how much is an hour of your time?"
But also, the thing is, it would benefit Marvel. I know people might not see that that link, but it would benefit Marvel for DC to be successful, to have DC make successful big budget movies. The reason is that the more people we get in cinemas again, supporting cinemas, and just an awareness of the comic book, not awareness, everybody knows about comic book movies, but just obviously the enjoyment of the comic book genre. I think it leads into each other, and having the success that Marvel had, if DC had it too, it can only benefit cinemas. So
because if people get burned out on DC films, then it's very likely, the casual fans at the very least are going to be the ones to say, no, I didn't like that last one. I'm not going to watch this one, whether it's the same publisher or not.
It always makes me laugh as someone who's a fan of comics when I go I don't know, talk about something Avengers, and they're like, "Oh, is Superman in that one?" I'm like, "No. Superman is not in the Avengers." No. And they're like, "Well, I don't know." And then sometimes we were watching Thor or something, and someone will go, "So does Batman know Thor?" And I'm like, no, "Batman doesn't fucking know Thor." I'm just like. Where has this come from? This stupid question. And I'm like, okay, so Thor's not in Justice League. No, Thor is not in Justice League. No. And I know that you're not a comic book fan, but we all grew up as children, watching the same cartoons, right? Well,
those are probably the same people that think you score a home run in football. So, they have other interests.
I just I know as a comic book fan, I obviously know who the Justice League and the Avengers are, and I know that DC and Marvel don't cross over. But there was a DC Marvel crossover miniseries, but however, it's not very typical that those people cross over. So anyway, right, Marvel fucking getting confused now. Warner Brothers.
What were you saying about this two getting?
I fucking got confused myself. Anyway, Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. I knew the difference. That's why I stopped. So anyway, Warner Brothers Home Entertainment are going to preview some animated films. So Superman and the rest of the Justice League are going to be in the Injustice animated movie, which is inspired again by a video game and also comic books. So I think that'd be a pretty cool movie, to be honest. So They're also going to premiere an all-new animated movie, which is Catwoman Hunted, which is a heist movie. I think that heist movie is going to be pretty cool, to be honest. Out of those two, I'm actually more excited about the Catwoman movie. Not that interested really in the Injustice.
I really loved the Injustice League that was part of the Justice League cartoon from the 2000s. So,
no, I'm sure it's going to be cool. But between the two of them, I would love to see like a proper Catwoman. I mean, that Catwoman movie they did with what was her name?
Halle Berry.
Halle Berry. Do you know what?
Harry Belly.
Halle Berry. I said it too quickly. Halle Berry. I didn't put a gap. So Halle Berry. Anyway, do you know what? It's like one of those films like I've watched like 3 or 4 times and it's like rubbish, but like I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Like I watch it knowing it's rubbish.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking though, and they made it like it. It's a mess of a film.
Yes,
but it's like a kind of slightly family friendly.
It's a train wreck that you just can't turn away from.
Yeah, like it's kind of. It was before they started taking superhero films seriously. So
yeah,
when they used to just let's make
the days of Joel Schumacher where we put rubber nipples on the outside of the suit. Yeah, because that's what Batman needs.
Yeah. So anyway. I think this Catwoman animated film would be pretty cool, so I'd love to see it. So, and that's the end of our bloody rundown.
That was a lot of stuff to cover, though.
Yeah, there's a lot there, which is good because we'll be back in a minute.
I'm Tom. My partner Mike and I have been friends and co-workers for a long time. And at work, we're known for our daily water cooler conversations about TV shows and movies we are currently watching. Whether we're arguing over which Marvel TV show is the best, or agreeing about which Netflix original movie is the worst. The pop culture conversation is always popping on Two Brothers at a Water Cooler. You can listen to Two Brothers at a Water Cooler on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are available. Subscribe and share today.
So we're back, and that first half of the show is pretty lengthy news. DC, Marvel, the big two. We're gonna skip and jump over into the independent world as we talk about Cult of Dracula Volume 1, which is 6 issues it's written by Rich Davis, art is by Henry Martinez, and it's published by independent comic book publisher SourcePoint Press. Bit of a synopsis here. Cult of Dracula is a modern retelling, reimagining of the Bram Stoker's Dracula story. It includes familiar names such as Van Helsing, and there's a bunch of other sort of familiar names dotted as well, and the setting is in current times in America. So that is kind of its similarities are very similar, other than one specific thing as we go through the story, which we'll talk about in a minute. That actually the only real difference is key here is that Dracula is actually a woman, and actually Dracula is actually a woman of actually from a different story. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So the origin of this story, I was kind of looking up, trying to find out a little bit more about Rich Davis and this miniseries before we actually talk about it. So I thought the story of how this story became a story was actually very interesting. In all honesty, I thought the story of how the book became about was actually more interesting than the comic. So Rich Davis actually originally created this as a stage production in Wilmington, North Carolina, at a place called the Brown Coat Pub and Theatre, and it ran for an entire month and sold out shows, which I thought was pretty cool, to be honest. That was in October 2013. He also met some people while it was on stage that were kind of really excited for it, and the whole thing was about they were trying to turn it into a screenplay to become an independent movie. At the time, his wife, unfortunately his wife died last year. That's Rich Davis's wife, died last year of cancer, and which is obviously extremely sad, but it sounds like she was incredibly supportive of the idea of this becoming a film. However, between the two of them, they realized that actually they didn't have the money for it and kind of didn't really have any way of making it a film. So they decided, actually it was quite sad as well. Rich kind of got a little bit upset. Yeah, I think with his wife dying and deleted his whole script at one point, and his wife actually had a massive go at him. He said he actually, the interview I was reading, he said, I got it from both barrels. And but I can understand, like, probably I was trying to get my mind, like, so she's probably like knows she's dying, and she knows that when she's gone, she's probably thinking about what's her husband gonna have. Like, so, which I actually thought was quite sweet, that the wife was thinking, you know, I don't want him to put all this work into something, and then when I'm gone, he kind of has to rebuild. So, like, from scratch, if it's completely deleted. Luckily, she had a backup copy. So then they decided to rejig this as a comic book. So this is how we've ended up with Cult of Dracula. So it went from a stage show to a potential movie into a comic. However, there is now a movie in production. So I'm assuming along the comic book route, Source Point must have introduced him to somebody or other. And it's with a production company called Shaw Pictures, and the producer is Jerry Cartier. In terms of the excitement that I've just had about that, was more around the origin of this comic. Before I give any of my initial thoughts, Jasmine, what are your initial thoughts of these 6 issues?
Oh, wow. Put me on the spot. Okay. I'm just going to come straight out with it. This book was not for me at all. It was not my cup of tea. There were, I will say, there were several elements that I liked. For starters, Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of my favorite books of all time. The 1992 film is also one of my favorite films of all time. So my love of Dracula, and specifically my love of Bram Stoker's Dracula lore, is very, very high. So I had really high expectations when I found out that this was sort of like an adaptation of that. It didn't reach my expectations, and it missed by a country mile. But there were some things that I did love. Like, there was one scene where we're in someone's bedroom and they have a poster of Jason Momoa's Aquaman on the wall, which I thought was kind of funny. The connections that they make with other lore, like La Llorona was one that came up, and La Llorona is sort of a Mexican tale of a wife who has 2 kids and then finds out that her husband is cheating on her, and in a fit of rage she drowns her 2 children and then drowns herself. But because she murdered her children, she cannot get to the afterlife, so she is cursed to roam waters, and she drowns other children. There was a film. I did not see it because I don't like scary stuff. But the only reason I know so much about La Llorona is because we did a project on it in one of my Spanish classes in high school. So I thought it was interesting that they pulled some of the La Llorona lore. The Cain and Abel. There's a lot of biblical connections here in this book. We got a Cain and Abel connection. We have the connection with Lilith as being this is more sort of on the Jewish side of the Christian lore, but like Lilith, who was created from the same clay that Adam was created from, but she said, look, we're equals. And Adam was like, no, we're not equals. Like, I'm better than you. And she was like, bullshit. And so she left Eden. The running theme of Lilith, like having her hand in all of these things and becoming like the first vampire, was the way that they kind of wove that in there was really interesting. So I think they did a really good job with kind of infusing Bram Stoker's Dracula with these biblical sort of connections and these other mythology connections. But like the execution was not there. I mean, you know, you don't really want to shit on people's work, but like this was a mess. It's not cohesive at all. It has some really nice threads, like there's nice thread work throughout this first volume, but as a cohesive read, not at all. It is extremely hard to follow.
I think like it was my suggestion to do this. Like, so I mean, my reason behind suggesting this was because I think most of this year our reviews have consisted of big, like Marvel, DC, Image, Vault Comics.
Yeah, we want to give the little guy some love too.
And and we've also got some plans to do some other stuff. And I said to you, look, we basically have a plan of everything we try to review, and it kind of shifts a little bit here and there. And we know, obviously this podcast does jump in and out of different medias like TV, movies, and comics. And so because of that, our time is limited and we can only do so much. So we tend to look at bigger things. So when I was plotting, I think July to the end of the year, I was kind of trying to find places to make sure we could cover off comic book companies that we hadn't covered. And Source Point is someone that I'm aware of, and I've never read anything by Source Point. And I was like, okay, so basically issue 6 came out the other day. So I was like, okay, so issue 6 ends the other day. So let's read all 6 issues and do the whole thing as a review. Like as we said already, we're kind of now just doing sort of one review per episode rather than where we're trying to shove in two reviews, or sometimes even 3 when we've gone a bit crazy. So we thought, well, let's read all 6 issues, and by Source Point, let's give them a go. And Source Point is obviously there for introductory level sort of creators, like writers and illustrators and stuff like that. And like Jasmine said, you don't want to crap on someone's work, because everybody has their first comic, everyone has their first anything.
We all start from 0 at some point.
Like even in office level, people start in the post room and work their way up. Everyone has their ground, their origin story. So obviously Rich Davis, like I explained, he clearly has a massive love for this story of Cult of Dracula. He's obviously, the fact that it was a stage production in 2013 and here we are in 2021, it's obviously a big chunk of his life, and he's obviously got a lot of heart and passion for this story, which I have to admire. The fact that he, and even before 2013, to get to stage production, I mean, when did he write this? 2008, 2009? Let's just say something around then. It could have even been in his head for 10 years before that. We don't know. So, I mean, he obviously has got a lot of heart and soul that he wants to put into this story. And while reading the 6 issues, there's a lot that he covers. And it feels to me like someone's come up with a lot of good ideas and not really executed them to the best efficiency as I probably would like. So I think we should let's sort of break down the story a little bit more. In terms of my enjoyment of this 6 issues, though, I hated it. That's probably about the best way I can probably summarize it. As I said to Jasmine, we've read it, so you don't have to.
Yeah, that's the tone we're going with for this review. And it's just like I said at the very beginning, it wasn't for me. Like the overwhelming amount of blood and gore was unnecessary. Like, I get it, it's a vampire book, so I understand that there's going to be a high body count. I'm not upset at the high body count, but like, did I really need like 15 pages of people eating babies? Like, I didn't need that. I really didn't. And it was funny when I first started reading this, I texted Mark and I was eating dinner and reading at the same time. And I texted him and I was like, this was a mistake. Like, I should never have picked this up while I was eating. What was I thinking? And that sort of continued throughout all of the 6 issues. So fair warning, like if you do intend to pick this up, it is very, very, very graphic and very, very, very bloody.
It felt like reading the equivalent of like a Z, level movie. Like, like you got B movie and then we skip all the way to Z. Like, it's, I mean, and like when you said about the grotesqueness about this story, like the artwork, there's a lot of, unfortunately, babies and children. But also when they do show the sort of real sort of beast type vampires, that it was unnecessary just how they even looked, like. Oh yeah,
they were completely naked. There's so many naked vampires in this book.
Like wings and claws. And
I thought the wing design was really cool, but like, I don't know.
so that's sort of our initial thoughts. Let's sort of break it down a little bit. Cover art. What do you think of the covers?
Fantastic. And not indicative of what you're going to get inside the book.
Honestly, the covers were phenomenal. They should be like hung up and framed and just stuff should be done with the covers. Like, awards should be given to the covers. If there are awards for cover art, which I'm sure there are, like I can't remember off the top of my head now, but honestly, they should be framed, put in museums, put in people's houses. They should be used in bloody movie backgrounds. If you've got some sort of movie scene and they're at bloody art gallery, stick some of those Cult of Dracula covers up. Honestly, the covers, like you say, are not indicative of the interior. So I think that's a good segue. The interior. So the interior,
we joke about this all the time about art that fits the book, and how sometimes we can let ugly art slide because it fits the story. And I just got to say, like, this was just not a style that I jived with. I thought that all of the characters were ugly.
So like when you say Sweet Tooth, for instance, was quite ugly art, but it suited the story. Right. And I actually enjoyed the artwork of Sweet Tooth just because of the story really almost worked in sort of unison with the art and the writing. I know it helps that the same person wrote and illustrated it, but also, if you think about a lot of the books that we've read in our for our late to the party book club, like Persepolis and V for Vendetta, and that's not ugly art, but it's not exciting art, but it fit the story. So this artwork was just horrendous. Like, honestly, the first 5 or 6 pages of the first issue, I didn't love them, but I thought some of the sort of aerial shots, especially the one of the church or the police cars around it, were bearable. And I thought, okay, I could probably get through this. I could see already within the first 6 pages that I wasn't going to like it. I wasn't going to love it, but I thought I could probably come round to the art. But the aerial shots are probably one of its more positives, but the facial features, I mean, sometimes it is very difficult to tell the difference between certain people. Like, other than say one person in black and white,
or what they're wearing. Like at some point, you can only differentiate people by what they're wearing.
Yeah, there's no real difference in facial features or anything like that. It's just face A is used on. It's almost like that Master of the Universe thing, the toys, where they just had the same body for each toy to change the head. Like, it was a bit like that in some of the faces. So there's no real attention to detail given on any of the faces. And again, this is very much a novice illustrator, and this is someone who clearly is very early days in the comic book world. Maybe Henry on his fourth or 5th project will be a much more finessed illustrator, but for me, it's not artwork that I enjoyed. It's not artwork that I love or anything like that. I didn't like it, like, in all honesty.
Yeah, I liked the wings on the vampires. I liked the way that the 3 sisters were drawn. And the 3 sisters is a direct correlation to the 3 brides from the original Dracula. But outside of that, no, I didn't. Yeah.
I know. I mean, so, and again, like we said about the gore and the stuff like that, I mean, so obviously the illustrator is directed by the writer. So, and I just want to highlight, by the way, actually, this is the only time, or this is very rare that I've seen this on, especially on an independent book. It says on the front page of everything, written and created by Rich Davis, and the illustration is just illustrated by Henry Martinez. And having done the research, so I can see why they said it was only created by Rich, because Rich clearly did create this like over 10 years ago as a stage play. So he clearly didn't want to share any of his creative title with the illustrator. But a lot of the time in independents, you do see the illustration.
It's a joint effort. Yeah.
So you see the illustrator shares creative ownership, but he probably Henry was just work for hire. So anyway, in terms of illustrations, obviously he was directed by Rich, so he wouldn't have just decided to draw babies getting eaten. He would have been told that's what he was writing. But and in terms of the gore and everything that's in there, this is the thing as well. There's a lot of gore, but again, it's just ugly. And I mean, I know gore is going to be ugly, but it's just just badly illustrated.
But it was over the top. Like, we get it. It's a vampire story. There is no reason for anyone to assume that you're reading a vampire story and there won't be blood. Like, I get that, but it's overwhelming, so to speak. Like, it's just way too much of it.
Yeah.
And I think as far as like characters go, like again, you're taking characters that we are familiar with. Like we have Van Helsing, we've got Jonathan Harker, we've got Mina, we've got Lucy and Arthur and Renfield. And again, like I said, we've got the three brides, but they're sisters now. So all of these characters are familiar if you are familiar with the Dracula lore. But aside from them having the same names, it's not, I mean, it doesn't really flow with and what I would have thought and you know, of course I'm biased. Like I said, Dracula is one of my favorite properties. It doesn't jive well to me. Like, I mean, there are certain things that do check well, like Jonathan Harker and him getting in, you know, enticed by the three brides. That sort of happens. Lucy being sort of loopy and out there and in her own world, that happens. And Mina, I guess the dynamic with Mina is different because they've made Dracula a woman in this story, and consequently, like, Dracula is Mina's mother to a certain extent. So it's, yes, you get the same names, but the characters play much different roles, which is kind of, I don't know. It was just hard. It was hard to let go of the characters that I had in my head while I was reading this book, because to me, the characteristics of these people did not jive with what I was expecting. Now, again, that's my own fault. Like I went into this with expectations given the source material. And so because I had source material in my head while I was reading this, I was like, Van Helsing wouldn't do that. Or like Jonathan wouldn't do that. Like, so I read it from that point of view, which again, I understand is biased, but I honestly don't see the point of having reimagined Dracula when you didn't use the characters from Dracula in a way that was that recognizable.
Right.
If that makes sense. Like, why wouldn't it just be an original story then in that case?
I think it's such a good transition to talk about the overall story and structure of the book. So for me, I felt like it was a combination of good ideas executed badly across the 6 issues, and
yes.
the plot and the pacing were really off. Also, the characterization was just a mess everywhere. Like, it was difficult to really get to know any particular character. I didn't feel like any character had probably above and beyond stood out, and also been, I don't know, like actually they hadn't really shown much of any of the characters, giving us something to get into, like, or even like a point of view character that we could really get into. Mm-hmm. It was just like, I mean, I know, like, I noticed this with every issue, they kind of would end with some sort of revelation, and the next issue would potentially start with a flashback or filling this in. I didn't feel it was like filling us in enough. Like, yeah. I don't know.
I had said before we started recording, it felt like you said, the idea was there in the author's head, but he was too close to the idea because it just doesn't translate. Like, there's so much stuff that probably makes a lot of sense to him, but it's really hard for the reader to make that connection because we're not in his head. So I do think that he was definitely trying to do something, but it just it didn't come across the right way to me.
No, not at all. I was gonna say this is probably going to be in danger of being like our shortest review ever. So like,
I mean, it's unintentional. Like, again, the idea was there, and again, there's so much potential in a Dracula story. I think that there's, I mean, if we got a woman who created vampires that freaking glitter in the sunlight, like, there's room for all types of vampire stories, is what I'm trying to say. But to use the original source material in such a lackluster way didn't make sense to me. Like, it just, you could have made an homage instead of saying that it was a reimagining, because I just don't see the reimagining. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, so the only so in the interview I read, actually, basically somebody had encouraged him to change Dracula to a woman, and sort of the link then became to make it Lilith. And someone had said to him, other than that, this is just another vampire story. And that's basically what this is. This is just another vampire story. Like
Right.
it's just a boring another vampire story. It's not original. Like I know you gender swapped Dracula.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care that you gender swapped Dracula. I don't really care. Like I think that was interesting to make Lilith the original Dracula, and that could have been interesting in better hands or more experienced hands. However, it just didn't interest me. Maybe this movie might be really good. I doubt it. Like I mean, I can't see this movie being good. But
yeah, well, the Lilith connection could have been really, really great. I mean,
yeah. She
was a woman that was scorned by the angels and by God, and she took things into her own hands, and then she was cursed. And the curse was, you defied us, and therefore we're going to kill 100 of your children a day until you repent and come back and all that stuff. And she basically stood up.
Story then. Tell that story then.
Well, I mean, I think that's what they were trying to do, and it didn't come across. But like, I appreciate a good female villain, but my beef, and I say this all the time, my beef here is you made a woman the villain, yet her driving factor is her children. And that pisses me off, because to me it reads that women have no value outside of motherhood. And I think that is complete and utter bullshit. So you had this great character who literally defied God in Lilith, and you basically turn her into just a woman on a rampage, and that's not what she was at all.
I think the 6 issues might work better if we'd have made Lilith the point of view character, and started maybe with her in current context, and then go back and fill it in, and just made the book about Lilith. Like that could have been a much better story, rather than what it felt like to me was we were here 1 minute, here the next. When the first issue starts, and we've got FBI agent Michael Brown walking in, and don't get me wrong, it was horrible. He walks in, it's a church, there's all these dead bodies around, and the first sort of maybe 10 pages are kind of on him, and then we kind of pop in on him throughout the 6 issues, and he hasn't really got a big part to play really beyond that. But when we first come in, I thought, this could be quite cool. It's going to be he's going to be investigating it, and it's going to be, are vampires real? And then he kind of just gets sidelined, and I was a bit like, it seemed like it could be quite strong. And don't get me wrong, we've had 1,000,001 detectives investigating supernatural stuff. It wouldn't have been original, but it could have actually been more enjoyable than what we had here was just a hodgepodge of ideas.
Yeah. And think about it this way. We've spent all this time talking about all these other characters, except for the main character, who is Mina. Like, how can you have a book with a main character that is so forgettable that we talk about literally everyone else in the book except for the main character? And the sort of reveal that Mina is a daughter of Dracula, like it has no effect by the time it happens, because there's no lead up to it. Like we have not had a chance to build a connection to Mina to care in the first place.
When they said that, I was like, I don't actually care.
Exactly.
I don't care. I was like, I don't care about any of this. So by the time we got to the end, shit happened, and Dracula's dead or not dead, potentially. It's kind of ended with Dracula dead, but there's potential that Dracula's not dead. Let's be honest, Dracula's probably not dead. Yeah. So it ends on a cliffhanger, and it said that there's going to be a sequel called Rise of Dracula. I assume that's Dracula coming back. I'll be honest, I will not be reading it.
Nope, me neither.
Good luck.
Wish you all the best.
Maybe it'd be better. Sometimes, but
let somebody else tell me that it was better.
Yeah. So sometimes though, I've heard this before, with TV, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 seasons for a show to become good, which is slightly frustrating, but I do get that. Sometimes it can take time to build up to these things. And maybe he needed to tell this hodgepodge of ideas before he got to the story he wanted to tell. Maybe he should have told the Rise of Dracula story and then came back and thrown this mess at us. I don't know. Anyway, so let's talk about...
He could have benefited from a good editor too. Like a good editor could have maybe pulled more out of his own head so that it could come across better on the pages. Again, I think the idea is there. It just it doesn't connect. Like the whole cult thing, there's a part in book 5 where they go out and they're around this big tree and they're making a pinnacle, and it's just like, okay, but why? Like, what is the reason that people have to go through all of this stuff? Like, why are we doing the ritual? What is the point of it? Like, there's no explanation for why the characters are doing anything that they're doing. And so it's just kind of like we're literally going from event to event to event with no explanation as to why the events are happening in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like I'm already done talking about this. Basically, so before we jump into ratings, I just wanted to remind you a little bit from memory. So this is our 66th episode. I just wanted to remind you a few things along the way. Episode 16, we reviewed The Devil All the Time and The Third Day. Now, I know these are not fantasy, but we hated those two things like a lot.
Oh my God, that was a bad combo to read those two things at the same time.
I remember when we sat down to review it, we were like, oh my God, these were so horrendous.
Yes.
And then in episode 21, so we enjoyed The Resistance, by the way, but then we reviewed Hellstrom, which we again absolutely hated.
Yeah.
So, and then in episode 37, one of those things we loved, which was Castlevania season 3, again, but that was Dracula follow-on. Well, Dracula wasn't in season 3, but his children, one of his children was, and actually that was like 100 times superior to Dracula. But in that same episode we reviewed Black Cotton issue 1, so which we didn't enjoy either. So one reason I wanted to sort of highlight those things is because this is going to be the first time ever our ratings are going to be as in sync as they are.
Yeah,
I know. I already know they are. So, I've broken this down into 3. So, rating interior art. What would you give it?
1.
1 out of 5, by the way. And writing.
1.
And cover.
5.
So I am the same on all those. Interior art 1, writing 1, cover. Covers are phenomenal.
Yes, they are. Honestly. We will give you that. We won't take that away from you. These covers are fan-fucking-tastic. They are so artistic in the way that they're laid out. The monsters on the covers are actually really scary. These covers make it seem like you're about to read like a high fantasy book. So we definitely enjoyed the covers.
And I'll be honest with you, like, I don't enjoy. Look, when it's a TV and a movie, I don't feel that bad about bagging on a TV or a movie too much. I don't enjoy bagging on comics, like, because I know sometimes people just might make one comic and that's it. Like, and if it doesn't do well, like if it doesn't get, I do think people are buying it. So I'm not, if there's going to be a movie, potentially you may get a sequel. Like mine and Jasmine's review isn't going to change opinions. And although people listening right now might go, fuck, I'm not going to buy that then. But honestly, like it's so bad. It kind of is like, it is the equivalent of some sort of Z-list movie, like in comic book form. Mm-hmm. It actually made me think, I'm so glad I didn't, like we read it digitally. I'm so glad I didn't have paper copies. I felt so revolted by it. In honesty, I was like, I would want to get rid of them or sell them or something. Yeah. I wouldn't want to own them. That's how revolted I was by.
Yeah, they are extremely graphic. That is not an exaggeration. I mean, there are of the 6 issues, at least half of them have multiple pages of dead, dismembered, half-eaten babies. It's really gross.
But you know what? When we actually just thinking back, episode 4, we reviewed Perry Mason's first episode or first 2 episodes, and there was something like a dead baby in that. But even that was handled better than this.
Well, yeah, but they never showed you the dead baby.
No, that's what I mean. Like, they didn't, like, you don't need to see that shit. Like, no, that's kind of like the number one rule. TV and movies do not show shit that happens to children. Like that should be the number one rule, like all the time. Like, and I don't know. It was.
I mean, I can understand it for like effect once. Like again, this is a vampire story. You do not have to feed us the gore the way that this book does, because we assume that comes with the territory. So our imaginations while we're reading it, like you could have shown blood on the walls of the nursery, or maybe like a hand sticking up out of a crib, but you didn't have to show all of the graphic gore that you did show.
We're going to leave it there. In summary, we didn't like it. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You guys want to go read it and
take our advice. We read it, so you didn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, let us know. Like, hit us up.
If you disagree and you think we're way off the mark, tell us, because maybe it's something we're missing.
Look, I read a couple of reviews online of two people that loved it. I wasn't sure if they maybe had read the wrong comic, but anyway, I did watch a couple of other people's reviews online on YouTube, and they pretty much agreed with what we said. So, I was like, because I've seen a few people trying to get these comics, like looking for them, because obviously it's a small print run. So I was like, okay, so there are people buying this. So so that's when I started reading other people's reviews just to get a flavor. And I was like, okay, the online written ones are loving it. So I'm like, no, I'm not on par with them. And then I saw a couple of people's YouTube ones, and I was like, yeah, they seem to be in agreement with me. So maybe the written people, like, I don't know. Like maybe we're just different opinions.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not for me.
Yeah. Okay. So next episode, we will be reviewing a Marvel cinema exclusive Shang-Chi. I am looking forward to it.
Me too.
I'm going to go and watch it, and I'm looking forward to going. So
I've already got my tickets. I'm ready.
Oh, you already booked them? I'm going to book them tomorrow, hopefully. So anyway.
Don't forget, we did start a second podcast series where we tackle some of the most essential graphic novels of all time. Our 9th Late to the Party book club was Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi. That episode dropped mid-August. And our next book club, we're going to be reviewing the first 2 volumes of Why the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra.
Just FYI, that's the first 10 issues of that series. So you can also follow us on social media. We are Geeks Unleashed on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And you can get this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Google, Podbean, Apple, Spotify. We are everywhere. So please leave us a 5-star review and tell your geeky friends.
Come back next week where we'll hopefully be a lot more positive about Shang-Chi. So have a good week and good journey.
Good journey.
I think I'm going to keep doing it.